Your inner eagle will be fed following today's tutorial. Not only will you learn everything about SQL group bys, but you will also be joining me on a data analyst project where we output 3 Excel charts from one SQL table. We will be building this chart, which is revenue, grouped by day. This second chart, which is revenue, aggregated up to the state. And lastly, we'll be wrapping up our data analyst project by creating a chart that's revenue, aggregated, and grouped up to month. By now, you probably know how to open up a SQL database and write a basic select statement. But you're hoping to make the transition from looking at your data to changing the underlying aggregation of that data so that you can build charts and reporting. In order to change the underlying aggregation of your data, you need SQL group bys. In this example, we have a table that has revenue, and we are doing aggregate functions on that revenue and aggregating it up to the state. As you can see, state being in the group by clause. To build those 3 charts, let's start in SQL Server. I first want to show this revenue table. So this is a basic revenue table, which is revenue, customer ID, and the timestamp. So let's write our very first query to basically sum revenue and aggregate it by the day. So lucky for us, day is already in this table. It's called purchase date. I'm going to rename this to day. I know it's a reserved word, but that's fine. And then revenue is actually under this column called purchase amount. So before we aggregate it or before we sum it, I'm going to do a coalesce. This is kind of for safety. What it does is it makes sure that if it comes across a null value, it converts it to a 0 and then it does the sum. If we try to sum a column with nulls in it, we will get an error. So that's why we're using a coalesce. And all we need to do is just call this revenue. And then this is where we tell SQL how we want to group this aggregated revenue. And we want to group it up to day, right? So I'm just going to order it by purchase date so that we can see everything outputted in chronological order. And there we have it. This is basically revenue aggregated by day. Just remember that we renamed this column purchase date to day. Even though it's a reserved word, it does work. So in our very second example, or for our second chart, we want revenue aggregated by state. So let's take a look at our table again. So if you look at the very right hand side, we have a column called state. So we can just use this very same column and just have purchase amount aggregated up to state and put state in the group by. So we can just take this existing query and just change a few things and just say, you know what, we just want to aggregate this to state. And then I'm just going to change this group by to state. And then I'm going to remove the order by, and here we are. Okay, there we go. We have revenue summed up to state. So first row, Massachusetts, second, Tennessee, so on and so forth. Now, I saved the one that's most fun for last. We want revenue aggregated by month. But the tricky thing is we don't have a month column in our table. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to create our very own month column. And I have a very special way to do it in SQL Server. And this technique has served me so many times. It's pretty amazing. So I will show you how it works. Okay. So again, if we look at all the columns in our revenue table, we don't have a month column, so we're gonna have to build our own month column. So how do we do this? So what we're gonna do is okay, so what is going on here? So what we're doing is we're trying to say from the beginning of time, which is 0, how many months have occurred between the beginning of time and this timestamp right here? Seems a little odd, so why are we doing that? And the beginning of time is basically the beginning of time as configured by SQL Server. So when I run this, it's going to output a value, let's say 200 months between the beginning of time and this timestamp. And it'll do it for every single timestamp, right, throughout this table. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that resulting value and we're going to add it back to the beginning of time, and that'll give us the first of the month. So we're going to add those months back to the beginning of time right here. And I'm just going to call this month. Let's bring back 5 records just to see if this works. So this is pretty cool. Row 1, we have May 6th, and it was successfully converted to the first of the month, which is May 1st. Second row, we have June 26th, and that value was successfully converted to June 1st, and so on and so forth. The only thing we need to do is we need to cast this as a date to get rid of that trailing timestamp. There you go, that's much cleaner. Fantastic. So all we need to do is basically just aggregate our revenue to this month, or these month values. Let's add our group by. Now let's see if this works. And it does. Fantastic. Great. So we wrote our 3 queries. We got our 3 data sets. Now let's just build those charts in Excel now. So looking at Excel here, we are in our revenue by day tab. All we need to do is basically just create a very quick sort of histogram. And here we are, and I kind of leave it up to you to beautify this a little more. And if we go to revenue by state, all we need to do is just build a really quick histogram here, and here it is. And then very lastly, here is our revenue aggregated by month. And we are done. This concludes today's session on SQL Group Bys. I hope this was helpful. Please continue to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.